Welcome to OOO, an out of ordinary podcast where we dig deep into case studies and the nitty gritty of Web3 marketing. You'll find here all the amazing people that are building Web3, so stick to us as we address their marketing secrets and learn how to build amazing products and brands. Hello everyone, I'm Alex, your fellow Web3 marketer and the host of Out of Ordinary podcast. This is episode 68. I've been working on a bunch of stuff to make this space a little better for everyone. 2 very successful Web3 marketing hackathons, now working on a third one at DevConnect in Argentina, a community of marketers in Web3, and now looking to live stream a lot more often. The reason for that is that I know resources are scarce and I think together we can push the pedal. So if you want to get involved, such as sponsor, hire, grow the community, or come on the pod, DM me. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest. Lindsay Casale is the Chief Marketing Officer at Pi Squared. Before joining Pi, Lindsay was the head of marketing at Mina Foundation, where she led the go-to-market strategy for its Ethereum Layer 2 product. Prior to that, she was a marketing leader at Mina Foundation, overseeing the communication team for Mina Protocol, a Layer 1 blockchain. Lindsay's expertise extends beyond Web3. At SheFi, she led the membership marketing team for the personal finance company. She also led event strategy at Salesforce, where she contributed to major events including Dreamforce. Outside of work, Lindsay has provided her marketing expertise to many non-profit organizations. She also is an active SheFi member and prominent voice in the Web3 marketing community. She holds a bachelor degree in journalism and public relations from California State University, Chico. Hi, Lindsay. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm super excited to be recording this episode. I saw we got a lot of questions from the audience as well. We already have a guest. So who's super excited to be listening to this conversation. So very happy to have you on the Out of Ordinary podcast. I haven't recorded for a long time. You're my first guest in a while. How are you?
Oh, I feel so honored. I'm doing good. It's, morning time. I'm based in California. Very excited to be here. I've been following you forever. So happy to actually be a guest now and chat.
Well, thanks for coming and thanks for taking the time. And to kind of kick it off, because I'm not so sure if everybody knows you, can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into Web3?
Sure. So currently I'm the CMO at Pi Squared. I've been in the Web3 industry for about 3 years now. I was previously in tech and then at Fintech. I worked at SheFi, leading their member benefits marketing for about 5 years. Great experience there. Before that, I was at Salesforce and worked on the strategic events team there, and particularly focused on Dreamforce, which is, as many of you know, a very large technology conference. And then I joined the Web3 space when my former boss at SheFi, she had gone into the space for a few years and we reconnected and she sort of convinced me to consider it, because there was a lack of strong marketing talent in the industry. And it took some convincing, but eventually, I joined her team and I haven't looked back since. It's been a really fun journey. I was at Mina Foundation was the company. I was there for about a year. I was their VP of communications. I then transitioned to Mina Foundation, which was one of their ecosystem partners. I was their head of marketing. And then recently I joined Pi Squared back in March. So I've been here about 6 months, almost 6 months. And it's been a fun ride.
I have to admit that I've had my eyes on you and Pi Squared ever since you announced the transition on Twitter. And I mean, you've been transitioning into so many roles ever since you got into Web3. What do you like about the industry?
So I like to explain it to people. It feels like working in sort of like the internet era of the 90s and like the .com bubble. It feels like we're all on the cusp of something incredible and like no one gets how incredible it is yet, but they obviously soon will. And we've kind of seen that over the past year. So I love it. Like I love being a part of sort of the next wave of the internet and the next wave of finance as we know it today, especially coming from the fintech world. So I love that. I also love like the ambiguity, is obviously super fast paced. Things are pivoting quickly. I know that's not for everyone, but I personally love it. I was getting very bored in Web2 and tech in general. It moves very slow. Of course, like the bigger the company, the slower it moves. So it's easy to get bored and complacent and look around. So I think like really kind of any size of Web3 company you're in, it doesn't really matter. It's all kind of crazy, but I enjoy that.
One of the things that somebody told me when I think it was at the beginning when I joined Web3, they told me that like they're sick of doing marketing for medical shops, whatever you call that in English, and very like stable businesses, let's say. And like Web3 seems like the playground for like all us marketers, and not only. Mm-hmm. And I think that was like one of the things that attracted like a lot of us there as well. Something you mentioned to me is that in 2019 you helped launch a DEX. Looking back, what did you learn from that early experiment?
Yeah. So that was at SoFi. That was when they were dipping their toes into crypto before it was cool. And it was, of course, like a new challenge, something exciting. This is way before I joined Mina Foundation. But, of course, crypto then and even still now, it's, people are afraid of it. They think it's a scam. They don't know what to expect. And it's pretty intimidating, right? So, I sat down with our product lead of crypto at the time. And, as me being responsible to marketing all of our products to members, we had to sort of figure out how do we get people interested in this and engaging with a specific product, right? And I think the biggest thing I learned that I've taken to Web3 is you need to make it approachable and inclusive. A majority of folks at SoFi that were using our Invest product were a majority men for many reasons, right? And so I think in my mind, I was on a mission to make it so anyone felt like they could get involved. It's not this, scary thing that's hard to understand and untrustworthy. So one of the ways that we did that is we did a couple of launch events, one in San Francisco, one in New York. And these events consisted of networking and a panel discussion to kind of intro people to crypto, to understand the industry, what you use it for. And those panels consisted of all women. And I was really proud of that because for me as a woman, I find that things are more friendly and approachable when I'm hearing it from someone else that looks like me, sounds like me, has maybe a similar background and experience. And we did have, a male panelist, so there was some representation there. But I think it's important, and something that I don't see a lot today in our industry is different backgrounds, different genders, different ethnicities represented in marketing. And then there's also like a second piece here. And the second piece is, making sure you're educating people and making the education approachable. A lot of us like put out white papers, put out long technical Twitter threads that only half of, the people following you can understand, if that. So I think SoFi did a great job of, following up this big announcement launch with incredible educational resources. There were virtual events. There was content hubs dedicated to understanding various aspects of crypto. There, was podcast episodes. We had our own podcast dedicated to diving into it, bringing on special guests in the industry. We were showing up at events and talking about it as well. So I think, it's super important to have, of course, like the more technical deep dives, but also have that, surface, broad facing marketing language that anyone can understand. So I think, the biggest advice, just to kind of sum it all up, was to make it approachable so more people are attracted and interested in it, and make it inclusive. Make it so it's not, targeted at one specific type of person. Because honestly, like if we attract more women into the industry and they see themselves, on stage or reflected on stage, that's more female developers, that's more female users and mainstream users. And we're trying to get more people to adopt it. So of course, something to think about.
I actually have a lot of questions for you prepared for today, but something that like I'm dying to ask you, just because you talked about representation, and something that really like is very important for me as well, is like, why do you think like, and this is something that somebody said at some point, do you think that the industry is building products that are mostly designed by men for men? Or do you think a lot of the products that we see right now in Web3 especially are built with like a larger audience in mind? And obviously this can be, I mean, women as well. And this can be in terms of like the type of products that are being built, how they're being built, user experience, and so on and so forth, like how easy it is to do them. And if you like, depending on what you answer, I also want to know like why do you think we don't have so much representation right now? Even if like I believe that I've seen a lot of progress in the last couple of years, and every time somebody tells me like, oh my God, there are no women in Web3, I'm like, but I know a ton of amazing women in Web3.
Or quietly in Web3. We don't want people to know.
Difference, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're kind of going through a similar stage like the tech industry went through, right? Where there was a lot of like male-dominated companies, like founders. It was a very male-dominated industry because I was in tech, 10 years ago. And that has all shifted quite a bit. And there's a lot of companies that are much more progressive than others. I think the same is true in crypto. And we're also at that stage where we're getting more people in general just to get into the industry, and also more mainstream folks, as end users. So it's hard to say. I'd say like a lot of the marketing that I've seen, just pure marketing, like first touch with a lot of brands, is more masculine in nature. And to me as a woman, I'm not necessarily drawn to that. Like maybe I think it's cool, but I don't necessarily I want to learn more. And I think there's definitely exceptions to that. And as a result, like those exceptions are actually female founded companies. So like Succinct, great example. Espresso, great example. I think like Rekha's work with Boundless is another good example. I mean, she's not the founder, but she's sort of the face of that brand. And she has made it more, inclusive in my mind, and more approachable and more beautiful than the typical, neon and black color scheme that everyone's doing, and just sort of like talking to people in a specific way. I think all those brands do a really good job of being inclusive, to speaking plainly and appealing to more people, men and women who maybe are first sort of diving in and learning things. So I think we have a long way to go, but we're kind of in this growth phase. I mean, we're so young as an industry. I'm hoping that changes, and I'm seeing more and more women, on panels, speaking at events. But even in my own experience, like I'm always trying to curate really diverse conversations, whether it's online or in person. It's just hard to find women who are willing to put themselves out there. Even myself, like I'm, coming on a podcast, that's a big deal, right? A lot of people aren't willing to do that. So it's just a matter of leading by example, to showing folks like it's okay to be visible and to have an opinion, and to take a leap and try things, even if they're scary. It's certainly not holding back most of the industry who's, non-female.
Yeah, well, I'm trying as much as possible to encourage a lot of women. I do see a lot, ever since I moved to Twitter, I do see a lot of women in the Web3 space, and obviously like at events at like SheFi and so on. And I'm trying to like diversify the type of like people that I have on my podcast as well, just because I feel like we need like different voices with different types of experience to say this, to tell the story at the end of the day. Something else I wanted to ask you, and I think it's also very, very important for me, and I've talked about a lot on social media, is about like company culture and hiring properly and not changing your job every 3 months, and knowing exactly what you're asking for and so on. And I know you've been in a situation where you had to do restructuring. What did you learn from that experience? And especially as a manager, let's say, in the Web3 space, which a lot of people say it's very different from Web2, but curious to hear what you have to say about this, because I have a lot of like controversial opinions.
Yeah. So I love to support and mentor people, and I would do it, till the cows come home. But unfortunately, things move so fast in our industry, and projects live and die so quickly. You do not have time to waste if you have an underperformer or someone who is not taking your direct feedback seriously. So what I like to do if I'm seeing someone who's struggling, or isn't, pulling their weight or whatever it is I like to give them, extra attention, extra support. I like to give them extremely direct feedback and kind of give them a timeline to improve by. And then if they can't sort of meet that deadline, either we need to find a different opportunity for them within the company or it's time to move on. Like there's no time to waste. And I think, a lot of projects feel that way. It's kind of like the slow to hire, quick to fire mentality. And I hate doing it, but you need to look out for the best interest of your company and the best interest of this person, because obviously as they're not performing, like they're not passionate. If it's not something going outside externally, like maybe they're not the best fit for that role too. So it's an unfortunate thing to do. It's uncomfortable and it sucks, but it's usually a benefit in the long term, because then you get the right person in there, or you're not like spending all your time redoing their work.
Yeah, this is true. I think a lot of people were talking about the fact that like, oh, this person is a bad person or is a bad professional, but I don't believe in that. I think it's just a matter of like, you're not the right fit in that particular role, and it is what it is. It's happened to me. It's happened to the best of us, I guess, and you need to live with it. And talking about like skills and people and performance, I know like I've seen a big trend recently about or regarding how the industry needs a lot more Web2 people in Web3. What do you think? What are some skills you think you need to bring from Web2 to Web3 to make it work? And what kind of like mentality shift you need if you want to make it in the industry?
Yeah, so I actually think Web2 marketers are totally undervalued and underrecognized. I'm really happy to see this shift now where people are like, I need to have a TikTok or YouTube presence, or I need to think about SEO, or I need to think about, proper life cycle marketing campaign. These are all things that Web2 folks are really, really good at. And meanwhile, we're fumbling around, trying to figure it out, not really doing a good job about it, like immediately. So, we're at a disadvantage. And like, there's these people that are bored on their jobs. They're looking for something new. They're probably already retail investors, so they have some sort of interaction with the industry. And they're like dying to get in. I can't tell you the amount of people I've tried to find jobs and no one will hire them because they're like, not Web3 native, no experience at a previous company. It's like, just give them a shot. Like, just interview them and see. Like, they'll answer probably questions just as good as a Web3 marketer who probably doesn't even know how to do an adequate like video strategy or content marketing strategy. So I think like most skills in Web2 can be carried over to Web3. Right now, there's a shift in the culture and how we all talk to each other. There's more of a developer focus. And so there's sort of that whole nuance. But honestly, like it was a culture shock for me, and it was a shift for me in how I thought, but I got up to speed pretty damn quickly. You don't have another option. Like you have to sink or swim. You don't have 6 months to get onboarded. You have like 6 weeks, if that. So yeah, I think like there was a ton of things that carried over. Community building, number one, was really, really happy to see that is a huge focus in Web3, even if there's debates about what a community actually is. It was something I worked on, like literally that was my job at SoFi. And then Salesforce is extremely member centric. Focus on social channels while they kind of shifted. Prioritizing Twitter, Discord, Telegram, the tactics, the strategy was kind of the same, right? It's like, okay, like this is a main channel. How are we going to like double down and leverage it to our best of our abilities? Events goes without saying, kind of the, desired result and outcome of those is very similar. And then, ambassador programs as well. That's something that is very prevalent in Web2. Things that I kind of like threw away though when I came over were sort of that professional button-upness that Web2 brings, and like that extra polish, that extra like professional sort of way of interacting with each other, with, your community. It's like people are just like real in themselves and casual, and they're just authentic. And it was a little like surprising at first, but I actually really love it. And I can't imagine kind of going back to that corporate tech way of being.
But don't you think that sometimes it's like Web3 is like a kindergarten where everybody just like, they're so unprofessional and you're like, how did you get this job? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you acting like this?
There's a balance for sure. But, hearing kind of my friends' experiences in Web2 and like, someone was just telling me, it's like, yeah, we're spending a week to prepare for a presentation to like a vice president at a big company. But still, I'm just like, I just like, hit up my founder. Like I can just talk to him on Slack right now. So it's just like, it's such a strange difference in just how we interact with each other. Like it's a much more flat in Web3. Like there's a lot more access and visibility, which is good and bad, but I don't know. I like it more.
Yeah, I think this was one of the things that drew me in for at the beginning, to see that everybody's so approachable and it's just like a message away. Where in Web 2 it would take like million interventions to be able to get to somebody. Um,
Exactly.
so
Not
I
efficient.
do think that this is something that I like a lot more in Web 3. And you were talking about like shifting skills or bringing skills from Web 2 to Web 3. And
Mhm.
kind of regarding that, like, what do you think Fintech does very well in Web3 marketing? And then I think DeFi or any financial institution in Web 3 could do a lot better, or like could learn from.
Mhm. I think the best and worst part of, fintech or Web 2 marketing is the same, and that's that they are better planners. They are better at thinking long term and thinking about things that are going to drive lifetime value and to retain as many people as possible. I think sometimes we're so focused on like getting as many leads or getting as many Twitter followers, but then we don't do a good job of engaging them or thinking about their journey. So, like, for better or worse, Web 2 will, beat it to death and figuring out, okay, how can we make this the best experience for them possible? How do we do the most beautiful marketing? How do we, set the perfect goals, and like, what are all the KPIs to measure those goals? And I think those are all things that are important and that, we should do more of. But on the flip side, those things take time. And for us, we don't have that time. And that's as a result of that, we don't do proper planning. We're just flying by the seat of our pants. We're figuring stuff out in an afternoon, not weeks. And that can be good or bad. But I think there's a marriage of both. There's a compromise here where you can, take the time to set the goals, to think through a campaign, to think through this experience of what, the journey you want people to go on. But doing it quickly, like doing it in a week, like you don't have to do it for weeks and weeks or a month, which is what like is the process in Web 2. So what I've done at Mina, Nil, and now at Pi is I've sort of brought that sort of strategic mindset and that planning aspect to the companies, and it's paid off like tenfold. And then also I have metrics that I can go and I can present to be like, here are the goals we set. Here's how we netted out. Usually we have met or exceeded most of them, and that looks great for investors. That's great to show to the leadership team. That shows like what you're doing is working. So it's also helping yourself as a marketer as well.
You know very well that many times, like founders don't trust you, don't trust what you do, and many times they want to get involved and they hire you as a marketer, but they always say they know better. What's your relationship with the founder of Pi Squared, and why do you think like building a strong relationship between two parties of this kind is important?
Yeah, it is paramount. I have a very strong relationship with our founder. We've actually, been talking off and on for over a year. I guess probably a year and a half now, even though I only joined like 6 months ago. So, he's a more seasoned founder and professional. So he understands the importance of delegating and letting people own their area of expertise and genius and not getting intervened. Especially, he's a technical founder, as many folks are. And so he is very respectful of like what he knows is versus I know. We do have a good dialogue when he's like, hey, I have an idea. It's not like, I have an idea, you should do it. It's like, I have an idea. What do you think? So even just sort of like approaching it from that mindset. But I cannot tell you how many marketing friends or acquaintances I've met, and they have terrible relationships with their founders to the points where either they've left or they've been, let go. And I think it really is like a make or break for a project. If you don't have that synergy, if you don't have that mutual respect, like you are not setting each other up for success. And I will say like a PSA for founders, if you're listening to this, is unless you are an experienced CMO in your past life, like let your marketing team do their jobs. Like they are the experts, they will advise. I'm sure they welcome your ideas, but let them do their job and also give them time to do their job, because a lot of folks get, unrealistic expectations set on them. I'm sure we've all heard like, I want 100,000 Twitter followers by next month. And we're all like, okay, well, how much money do you got? Because that's not going to happen organically. Or you have like a big, product announcement? No? Okay. So, it's like setting expectations, like proper expectations, establishing that trust and, just letting your team do their jobs. And I'm very grateful that I have someone who lets me do my job, who trusts me, and I have the track record to back it up. So, I'm very like opinionated about this one.
Well, as you should be, because I think a lot of times it doesn't work the way it should work. But like something I'm very curious about. Do you think that, at least like this was the impression that was under, that a lot of like Web2 founders are a lot more normal in this kind of relationship than a lot of Web3 founders who sometimes they just want magic happening overnight, which we all know. And then they always blame it on the marketing agency or the marketing team, like, oh, my team is bad. I'm like, well, what about your expectations? Or what about your product? Is your product actually that good? Or like, what's your budget?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think too, because of the pace of our industry, everything needs to happen like right now. So I think that plays a piece into it. Web 2 is a bit slower, mind you, like a startup is running faster than normal and like a Salesforce. But I think the expectations are higher because the pace is higher. So that plays into it too.
How do you do it as a solo marketer? Because you were telling me that you don't have a team that you work with, and I do believe that it's very hard, especially when a lot of expectations are being asked from you. How do you do it, and how do you approach strategy and execution at the same time? Because I think that's where a lot of marketers are struggling.
Yeah. I'd say ruthless prioritization. If it's not going to help the company achieve its goals, I don't care about it, or it's pretty low on my to-do list. And I think like that's the only choice I have. I can't like go off and do all these like little side projects. I can't like, focus on things that are nice to have. Like everything is like a must have for the most part. I'm also fortunate to where I am able to leverage folks internally and a little bit externally to help me. So for example, we have technical writers on staff. We have, team members who are excellent writers. They help write blog posts, or edit blog posts. I have folks that are willing to host Twitter spaces so that like I don't have to do them. I have folks that are willing to be thought partners with me on marketing strategy, thinking through goals, thinking through how to approach, our next product announcement or whatever. And so that is hugely helpful. I'm, cognizant, and maybe not all teams have that, or their team is too small and they're just one marketer and a bunch of, technical folks. So that's a challenge, right? And so what I would say is to look outward and to tap your community as a resource if you don't have that internally. And that's really helped me a lot. I have multiple TG groups set up and I am out. Does anyone have a resource from this? Has anyone done this before? Has anyone can connect me to this person? That's been extremely helpful. And I'd say, if you have the budget and you don't have headcount, I would say ask for contractors. I work with a couple of contract part-time workers who are experts in their area, and they help, take a lot of items off my plate that would take me a lot more time. So for instance, like social, I can do it. I've done it. But it takes a lot of time to think through, what I'm going to write, to edit it, to plan out the content calendar, to measure, the effectiveness of things. Outsourcing that saves you so much time. And it's, there's a ton of people willing to do it. It's not hard to find. So my advice is if you can't hire, if you can't get a full-time headcount, see if you can secure some budget for at least some part-time help in the interim. And also look internally and externally to your networks to help sort of fill in the gaps while you build out your team.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are complaining about the fact that they're not finding the right fit, but maybe they're not really looking at the right place. This is something that I personally would say. And talking about like right place and right time and narratives, like how do you think you can stand out like from a storytelling perspective? It is something I've approached with what I've talked about with a lot of speakers on this podcast, because everybody's like, yeah, storytelling is so important, but then you don't see much of it from many brands in Web3. How do you approach this? And maybe do you have any examples you can give to from companies that have done it properly, or maybe from stuff that you have done as well?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of chatter about this as well. And I think the reason why we're not seeing more of it is because it takes time to think through what your story is. It's so much easier. It takes time, and a lot of us don't have that time, or people that are willing to go on that journey with us. They're like, okay, that sounds great, figure it out. And it's like, oh man, like I need help here. So I think people just default to doing what everyone's been doing, right? It's like, here's our product, here's what it does, here's who it's for, and that's it. I think, a lot of people have been doing a decent job of plugging into some of the narratives that have emerged, or like the different hot items, whether that's stable coins, whether that's AI, and how their product is meeting, the demands or needs of those to areas. We're trying to do that ourselves. But I think the biggest advice or things that I think have worked well is to honestly like keep your message really simple and straightforward. If people want to dive in deeper, great. Give them the opportunity to do that, especially like for a technical audience. But people don't have time to connect the dots. You need to tell them quickly and succinctly like who you are and what you offer. You can't have all this like gobbledygook. You have to just like deliver the message. And if they like it, great. Give them the resources to move forward. If not, it is what it is. So I think like be simple. Don't over engineer it. Don't overthink it. And your story can evolve, right? And it's going to evolve with whatever sort of the flavor of the week is, the hottest industry trend, the latest narrative. You got to be flexible.
Do you think merch could actually be a part of your storytelling experience?
Oh yeah. I love a good merch. I don't know if I've personally done that, but I like the idea of it. Have you seen some examples of it?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about my friends from 10 Protocol because they have this T-shirt and they make you wear it and you take a photo of it with them, and then you post it on Twitter and you say you got Tanzanized, and then now you're like part of the 10 out of 10 club. And I don't know if this actually gets people to understand what 10 Protocol is, but at least like might look interesting. And if people see it on my Twitter, might be like, oh my God, let me see what 10 is. And obviously seeing these guys at every single event that I've ever been to also helps. But I think like what they have done here, it's something pretty simple. I'm not so sure how much traction they got, but it's also cool because they incentivized the people that like wore the T-shirt and took the photo and posted it online with their token, because I think they just launched their token or they're launching their token or something like this. I can't remember exactly. Because I remember I got a token allocation. I can't remember where, like it's something very recently. I can't remember exactly how much, but I think this was something cute and nice for me to, I mean, they're already my friends. So I would I would support them in any way. And it was really funny because in Canon, they're like, oh, Alex, so like what's protocol are you very bullish on right now? And I was like, oh my God, let me think about it. They're like, hello, 10 Protocol. I'm like, yeah, of course, I should have said this. But I think like what they've done was something pretty simple, pretty low cost, and yet pretty effective because it got to be spread around by a lot of girls, a lot of like people in the industry as well. I don't want to put the emphasis on girls, but I mean, they know a lot of like female Web3 people. I don't know how to call them, members of the community, and I think this could have helped out a bit as well. I don't know.
Totally. I love the idea of it. I know it's sort of like an extension of your brand and to get it out there more. So like from an awareness perspective, but I like the idea of kind of plugging it into like your current narrative or, what sort of story you're telling at that time. That's something I might have to steal.
Yeah. One of the questions, I got a lot of questions from the audience. I'm going to try to get some of them I'm going to try to get you to speak about some of them as well. One of the questions that we got is like, how do we define your target audience and where do you typically find them? And do the audiences differ significantly through different phases of the project? How do you transition them? I think it's a very good question.
Any questions in that question? All right. Let me do my best here. So there's obviously multiple audiences within Web3. So you can target, a few segments at the same time, right? But my best advice there is to limit, right? A lot of founders are like, okay, we need to target developers, but also investors, but also
everybody in Web3.
Yeah, and I'm just like, so everyone. So it's good to be really narrow, I think, especially the beginning stages, and really actually sitting down as a leadership team and deciding together, like who is important now. Like I just did this exercise recently. I'm like, who are your like top 2 to 3, people that we're targeting right now? Okay, those are the 3. Great. Like, okay, then the next phase, what are those audience members? So having that conversation, it shouldn't be something that marketing is tasked with to figure out. It's a collective discussion because it also depends on like your product roadmap, what the focus is for the company. Are you trying to raise right now? Are you trying to get more partnerships? It's not just about, developers or end users. There's other audiences in there. In terms of like, putting that out into a framework, I like to basically open up a simple Excel or Google sheet and, sort of list out those audiences. And if it makes everyone feel better, you can list them all, like do everything from, a community member to a developer, everything in between, researchers, everyone. And basically go through the process of like, where do they hang out? Like, where can you find them? Or where do they like to consume their content? What are their wants? What are their needs? What keeps them up at night? What incentivizes them? So kind of doing that, framework, that outline is super helpful, because as you as a marketer can start to understand, like, these are their pain points, these are things that they want. And then this is where they're showing up, whether it's Discord, Telegram, events, whatever. So then you can tailor your marketing more effectively. So I think like that's my best advice, is to, have a collective conversation with senior leaders, to kind of map out the different stages of the company. So that's, the pre-launch, the launch, and then sort of building momentum, and what are the different audiences for those, filling out the framework. And then, of course, you kind of need to adjust your message for each one of those. And there's different things that are important to different audiences. So investors care more about, number go up and like some vanity metrics, whereas developers are like, asking about your TPS and their, like things that make more sense for them. So yeah, I think, it's a process, and it changes, and you have to revisit it pretty frequently, especially if you're progressing quickly on the product side. So that's my best advice there.
Something else, I know it's important for a lot of people, and people have asked me as well, is networking. And we spoke about like how everybody is so approachable in Web3. What do you think are the best tips and tricks that worked for you, especially that you landed this role through somebody that you already knew? It wasn't through a job application.
Great question. Networking is an art. And I'll give you some advice for both in-person and online. I'll start with, I guess, both. Is I like to go out of my way to help other people, whether it's a project internally or maybe with a partner, whether it's connecting two friends that should definitely meet, whether it's trying to find, a perfect hire for my friend who's hiring someone. Go out of your way to help people, and do it without expecting anything in return. Because what you'll find is actually like those good deeds you do will actually come back in a lovely way and serve you at a later point. This has happened to me many times. Again, I'm not doing things to like get something in return. I believe it's just like the right thing to do. And I love connecting people. It just like brings me happiness and joy. But I'll say, if you are looking to kind of, earn some karma points and to get your name out there and be more visible, like just start helping people as much as you can. My other advice is to put in FaceTime, both online and in real life. I have, monthly calls with folks I used to work with at Mina Foundation. As I mentioned before, I had Telegram group set up with both of those groups, still in very close contact with all of those marketers. Continue those relationships, because we share resources, we share job opportunities, we share, ideas, or they're, serve as good thought partners. Those are very valuable relationships. You don't want to leave just because you've moved on to a different job. And then for IRL, I know networking, can be intimidating in person, especially because we're all online and kind of hiding behind our keyboards. Not everyone is in marketing and BD and naturally wants to walk into a room and talk to everyone. So my best advice is to single out another person who is by themselves and start there, because it's intimidating to walk into a group to break up a conversation. It's awkward, right? So I think that's a good way to kind of break the ice, get your feet wet, and start kind of getting in your groove. I'm also usually set some goals for myself. I say I'm going to go to sort of this many events if I'm at like ECC, whatever. I'm going to go to these 3 events, and my goals for those events are I'm going to meet with 2 different people, and I'm going to talk to them about partnership opportunities, or see like, if they're hiring or whatever. So, I like to set goals for myself and like reasons for being there versus just showing up, hoping someone talks to me. No one did. Okay, I feel awkward. I'm going to move on. Like that's not a good way of, having a successful networking experience. So those are my best pieces of advice for online and in-person networking.
What do you think about people what do you think when people say, oh my God, I went to this event and everybody was just like trying to sell me something?
Yeah, I don't like those. That's the worst. But it's becoming more and more common, right? Because it's a great place to go and meet, potential partners or clients or customers, whatever. So it's a little unfortunate. And so now I think what we're seeing, we've talked about this, a shift where that's more curated experiences, more invite only, so that you can kind of control who's going to show up. I think it's actually a pretty smart move for event organizers in general, because, your sponsors, your co-hosts kind of expect that. They want a certain type of person there. And if random people are showing up trying to sell exchange listings or try to get, sell you their auditing software, it's like, who let this person in? They're not a developer. They're not a founder. Maybe they're a founder of that company. But I think, we can all do a better job sort of curating our events to get the right people there, both event organizers and, sponsors. So something to consider.
There, I think I'm still trying to perfect my networking game. Let's say I think I do it pretty well, but you live and learn as every time.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to go back to some of the questions that we got from the audience. There's so many of them, and I'm trying to kind of pack them into chunks to make sure that we answer the majority of them or the best way we can. One of the questions is, what marketing strategies actually work in crypto versus what just looks good on a slide deck? I really like that one.
It just looks good on a slide deck. Yeah. I think it's things that stand out, honestly. Well, I think first you have to start with a good strategy, right? Because a lot of folks go into it and they have no plan. They have no goals. They have no strategy. They're just slapping stuff together. So a lot of people spend money and time on things that don't matter, or they do things just to do it. So you see a lot of people sponsoring events, but they're not showing up to their booth. They're not measuring the impact. Pretty much everyone does that, right? And it looks great to say hey, we got a speaking slot at this event, but actually we paid a lot of money for it. And we didn't measure if it reached anyone. We didn't see how many people were in the room. We didn't see how many people engaged with our content on Twitter. We didn't even promote it on Twitter or the clips or whatever. So I think it's, knowing the right things to do for your audience, not reinventing the wheel, doubling down on things that work. And if they start to not work, then, adjusting and pivoting accordingly. I just think there should be better measurement in place to actually show the impact of stuff that we're doing. I think it's very retroactive. It's not thought about, especially when we're planning and doing strategic work. And I think that needs to change. And that's something that I've taken with me through all of my jobs, and I've learned in Web2. So I think, if you want to impress someone, you need to show them what were the goals and how did you meet or exceed them? And everyone's goals are different based on your company priorities, based on your products or, project stage. I'm giving more general advice here, but you kind of have to tailor it to what's important at that time. But I'd say measure everything, and that's easier to show the results and have people be wowed.
Do you think we're missing tools in Web3 that are that would help us be better marketers? Personally, I do believe this.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone's relying on Twitter analytics when there's way more robust social tracking. I know Chico obviously is a main one, and the other one I can't remember the name, which are great, which are fine, but I think there's so much more that we should be tracking and managing and using that data to make really informed decisions. I think we're moving so fast, it's hard to sit down and analyze things and write reports and share metrics, but it's a part of my process. I do it constantly because it also tells me what's not working, what I shouldn't keep doing, which is taking away time and resources from other things that are working. So yeah, I don't have a lot of specifics, but I think just more robust ways to track data. I know, Dune kind of offers some of that. I've used Sprout Social in the past to track engagement across more social channels, get more robust metrics outside of Twitter. But yeah, I think there's a lot more we could all leverage.
Yeah, for sure. I have a very strong opinion about the fact that we don't have enough tools to leverage this or to be better marketers or to track everything in Web3. So I'm still waiting for that to happen. So sometimes when I say another info file, another social file, I'm I want to die.
I know. Just stop.
Another question we got is regarding influencer marketing. When do you think it's a waste of time, and when do you think it's actually an option?
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. I have just started working with some KOLs, and through kind of a third party who's experienced with managing them, But what I've learned in a very short amount of time is that it's quality over quantity. It's very tempting to pay a lot of money and get a lot of people talking about you. But if they don't have as much influence, if their follower count is lower, or if they're just there to like collect their money and move on, that's actually not really going to serve you. You want folks that are going to take the time to learn about you, to write something, on Twitter, let's say, that's well thought out and is aligned with your messaging and what you're actually trying to accomplish. And you're hoping that you can kind of build that relationship with them and that they stick with you, of course, through a paid relationship, but, they're more invested and they're more interested in, promoting you. So we've seen that, we just launched our Facet pre-release this last week, and we actually saw an incredible, result as a result of working with KOLs in this manner of quality over quantity, working with this third party who manages them, who has those established relationships, who's able to take, time off my plate to brief them, to get them up to speed, and to manage them in a way that I frankly just don't know how. Like, they know how to leverage them to the best of their abilities. Like, we were trying to do it ourselves before and do interviews and try to understand like what makes a good KOL. It's like, no, like, leave that to someone who does that for a living. Like, you won't be able to figure it out in the time you need to figure it out. So that's my experience. It's probably a mixed bag, and people probably have way more lessons learned than I do. Like I said, I've just started working with some around this campaign we're doing right now, but that's sort of like my quick tip.
What do you think are the most underrated channels for crypto marketing right now?
Probably YouTube, honestly. I think there's been more of a focus on that. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out TikTok right now. We've all seen it. Seems like it's not going so well, but I'm sure we'll figure it out at some point. But like, just think about like YouTube is basically the video equivalent of a Google search, or maybe even a ChatGPT, where people are like, what is a blockchain? Or like, what are stable coins? Or what is infrastructure? Like, like asking those really basic questions, and the things they're getting served with are, like, there's not that much content out there. So if you're creating that content, like, you're getting those eyeballs on maybe not exactly your target market, but it's like the wider mainstream industry, or maybe a potential user, maybe a potential community member. So you'll probably see more and more people starting to leverage video, leveraging YouTube or other similar platforms, maybe decentralized platforms. But I think that's something that marketers have kind of avoided up until recently in our space. I think I keep saying this, but like SEO, not a high priority. It wasn't, well, I wouldn't say it wasn't Mina, but it's something we at least like kind of tracked and focused on and created content to help improve it. Because again, like search results. And then I think too, email. Of course, you've seen a million newsletters. So there's one aspect to it, but there's something to be said about, having sort of that customer journey. And as more people that are non-Web3 come into the space, more Web2 native folks, like, they communicate with email and they like to be nurtured and served information in that channel. So we need to adjust to meet them where they are. We can't just keep talking to the same 20,000 people or whatever it is on crypto Twitter. So we need to kind of adjust with this new flow of people coming in to the industry.
Well, let's go. I've been talking about like mass adoption for a long time. Something I wanted to ask you, because you also mentioned that you guys are running a campaign right now. What were you like? What is it about? What were your thoughts behind it, and what are you testing it for?
Yes.
What are you testing? Sorry.
Yeah, last week, probably by the time this comes out, it will be a couple of weeks post, but we announced our Facet pre-release, which essentially is a stage between a DevNet and a testnet, where we're showcasing the performance of our infrastructure. And the interesting about us is that we're actually not building a blockchain. It's a different type of Web3 infrastructure that hasn't really been done before. And because it's not a blockchain, it's actually able to achieve really high performance, like above and beyond what a blockchain is even capable of doing. So our biggest sort of like performance related announcement was we were able to achieve over 100K transactions per second with less than 100 millisecond finality, which is really fast. And a lot of people, like a lot of blockchains, like claim this, but it's actually not scalable. It's like, we did it in one test, So we've actually been able to repeatedly replicate it And then next week, we're actually going to be launching a game where the community can come and actually test it themselves and stress test it. So we're kind of getting people engaged. We're showing, not telling. Also, this is research that's been going on for years and years and years. Our founder is actually an active professor. The majority of people on our team have PhDs and come from academia. Like, this is not something we've pulled out of our hats. This is like years and years of work. And all the details behind the performance is detailed in our white paper. We actually have a universal one-page version so anyone can understand it if you go to our website, which was important for me to do leading up to this announcement. And so, I think it's important to showcase that there are alternatives to blockchains. That's not the only path forward, especially if we're going to scale institutions and AI and, digital assets. Like, it can't all be done on a blockchain. They're too slow. They're too slow today. So that's what we're trying to sort of get out. And we're doing it in a way to kind of, show people like the legitimacy of it. Because TPS is a metric that kind of gets glossed over. It's taken with a grain of salt. It's lost its luster because people have been using it, kind of abusing that term and like claiming it, but it's not actually true. So I actually thought myself, I warned my founder, I'm like, people are going to be really skeptical. They're going to say that this is not true. And he's like, well, just show them the data, show them the paper, show them the research. But actually what I experienced was the complete opposite. And about 99% of people were like, this is amazing. Why aren't more people doing this? So that was a really positive indication, and also shows a need that people are sick and tired of how slow things are running in the current state. And yeah, I'm excited to see if the game, gets some excitement and some engagement and is a good mechanism to get people, on board and excited about our testnet coming up. And I will report back. I will share if that game was successful. I'm really happy to see how it works out.
Looking forward to it. I'm very curious to hear more about companies that are actually undergoing it, to see actually the results, because I think there's no right or wrong. It's just you've tested this, it worked out or didn't work out, and what have you learned from it, and what can you share with others? And I do know a lot of people in the industry are also looking for very concrete examples, which are very, very, very scarce, I must admit. But kind of getting into the fun side of this episode, I think everything was fun, but on the fun side, let's say, do you have an unpopular opinion about Web3?
I think it needs more Web2 professionals. And that, we talked about that, right? And I've been banging that drum for years now, but I want to just share something here. I think actually Web2 marketers in particular are better than Web3 marketers. And that's not just because I was one. It's just they have more experience across different channels. They take the time to think through a strategy and to set actionable goals. They're not just randomly doing things because their founder told them to and then not measuring the results. Which isn't, that's a generalization, but I see it time and time again. I'm just like, we need to stop this. So unpopular, more Web2 professionals here. I know you hate to hear it, but it's what's needed, especially if we're serious about going mainstream and not just talking to the same, thousands of people.
I was about to say it long-term versus short-term. So choose wisely, I guess.
I know we want to preserve the ethos. I totally get that. And it could be a slow fade, but I am living proof that, it's possible. Just because you don't know how a blockchain works doesn't mean you can't, figure it out and be an incredible marketer in this space, or incredible BD person or designer, whatever. You can learn things. It's not that hard. Our industry is so weird about they can't learn it. They can't figure it out. It's they're pretty smart. They can probably figure it out. And there's so many more tools now to figure it out.
What's one tool you'd recommend, or do you have any tools or books that you would recommend to anybody listening to this episode that you think might be something that they haven't discovered yet and could be interesting for them to learn more?
Sure. Opus Clip was very helpful when I joined to create, cut downs of long form content. I am not a video editor, so I needed something that was really easy to use and look decent. And that was an awesome option for me. You can add captions, you can clip videos, you can do some light editing, some animation. I did that until we found someone who was better at it. So it was awesome. I think I'd recommend a book called, I have it here, Building a Story Brand, which kind of taps again on that message of, clarifying your message so people actually listen to it and making it simple so anyone can understand, and then going deep when you need to. I think that's extremely important. So Building a Story Brand is the name of that book, and has been really helpful for me in how I think about things.
Very Web2 of you, Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
Where can people find you?
Twitter at Lindsay Casale. I try to post something every day. Nothing too shilly, although right now I'm doing a lot of campaign posts. But I love to chat with people, DM. Would love to follow anyone in marketing or outside of marketing who wants to chat, connect. I love meeting up with people at events or what have you. So give me a follow.
And what's your company's website so I can send people there as well?
Yes, it is pi2.network. Short and sweet. We actually just launched our new website last week, so I would love to hear everyone's feedback. I was very happy to get my hands on it because I came into a space theme situation, so I had to depart from that. And now I think it has a nice fresh look to it.
Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a pleasure. I think it was one of my most favorite episodes. I think the conversation flew, and I think you've done an amazing job at it's giving us a ton of cool stuff to listen to. I hope to see you around soon. I hope to finally meet in person, and looking forward to releasing this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, let's connect at maybe DevConnect. Hopefully you'll be there.
Let's go. I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
We're planning cool stuff. So I think I'll definitely be there. So yeah.
Let's do it. And I look forward to meeting listeners as well online and in person.
Amazing. Well, thanks again. And have an amazing day ahead. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks. You too.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to our Out of Ordinary podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to hear more content like this, then open up the podcast app and click on the follow or subscribe button. It takes less than 5 seconds and is the single best thing you can do to support the show and stay up to date to more marketing strategies that are being used in the Web3 space.